There are people making noise outside. Friends, welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Pei Aleph, Daf 81 of Masechet Ksubis, friends. Well, today we kind of discuss like Yevamis. Is there anybody who like there's like a breath of fresh air? Is there anyone who's like, where has Yevamis been for like the last 3 months? Like they can finally take like a fresh breath of like Ruvain. A fresh breath of Ruvain, Shimon, and Sarah. Alright, we're going to start on Daf Pei Beis, Amud Beis, where the Gemara begins 5 lines from the bottom. What do they ask? Oh, so if you have a Shemeres Yavam Shemesa. Oh man, who can remind me what that is? Woo. Okay. Ruvain, married to Sarah. Ruvain dies, no kids, no Sarah, needs to do Yibum with Shimon, Hillel Lister, and then she dies. They didn't do Yibum yet, and she's dead now, too. Okay. Mikova, who buries her. Now nobody wants to bury her, because who's going to pay for it? I'm not paying, you're paying. Oh, Dilma, right, so what do we say? Yorshe Abal Kavrila, the Koyais Ksubis. But do we say that the heirs of the husband, so the husband's like brothers and stuff, would bury her because they inherit his Ksubis? Right, and of course we had said Ksubasa tachas kvurasa, or kvurasa tachas ksubasa, that if she dies, he gets the ksuba, and then but in exchange he has to pay for a burial, and since they're inheriting the ksuba, they have to pay for the burial. Or maybe the heirs of the father should have to bury her, since they would inherit the Nichsei Malug. Rav Amram Toshma. Rav Amram says, "Come here, the Tanya is learning the Brisa Shemeres Yavam Shemesa, that if a Shemeres Yavam dies, like in this case, Yorshe Ksubasa Chayav Mikvurasa. The brothers who inherit the Ksube, they need to pay for her burial." Amar Abai says, "Abai afanunami tanina." We have a Mishnah. Amarin izonis minichse yisomin, that a widow is supported from the property of the orphans, from the estate of that the orphans inherit. Umais yodea sheloin, and anything that she makes go to them. Ve'en chayavim b'kvurasa. They, however, do not need to pay for her burial. Yosher Yorshe Ksubasa chayavim b'kvurasa. Those who inherit her ksube, right, i.e. those who inherit her, those who inherit her ksuba would have to pay for her burial. Vezui amon sheish la shnei yershin, who is a widow who has 2 sets of inheritors, i.e. the inheritors of the ksuba and the inheritors of the nichsei malug. Have omer zo shomeres yavam. This is a shomeres yavam, because if she was married, then everything would just go to the husband. So, okay, fine. Very, very good. So, okay, fine. This is very good. Now, Tosfos asks, how could there be orphans, but also she be a shomeres yavam? So the point is that, no, it's not necessarily the same case, but the diuk of the yorsheha, of the plural, means that we can apply it to a case of where she's a shomeres yavam. And we're saying that those who inherit her ksuba would be responsible to pay for her burial. Amar Rava says, Rava v'leima, why don't the brothers say, right, let's say there's a brother, so why doesn't the brother say, the brother who inherits the ksuba, let him say, Ach ani yorish, look, I'm inheriting my brother, I get the ksuba, Yishto einani kofer, but I'm not burying his wife. Omar le Abai, so Abai says to Rava, well, mishum deban olav mishnei tzadin, if the brother tries to make that argument, we're going to come on him from 2 directions. Im achiv yorish yikbar es ishto, look, brother, if you are going to be inheriting your brother, well then, just like he was responsible, right, to pay right? If when he was alive she would die, he would be responsible to pay for her burial. So if you're inheriting his ksubas, then you're responsible to pay for her burial. Im enu kover es ishto, and if you're not going to pay for her burial, then you think ksubasos, so then you shouldn't be able to receive the ksubah. So Omar le'ochi ka'amino. So Rava says, well, this is what I'm saying. Ach ani yoresh, I'm inheriting my brother. As ishto ein ani kover, I'm not burying his wife. V'im mishum ksuba, and if you're going to say, yeah, but if you're inheriting the ksuba, then you have to pay for her burial. Lo nitna ksuba legabos mechaim. The thing is that a ksuba is unable to be collected during the husband's lifetime, and as we're going to see in a second, it's based on a diuk, on an implication in the ksuba, that the ksuba says, "Lichshatinosi le'acher." What does it say? "Lichshatinosi le'acher titli mashakasuv lichi." That when you get married to somebody else, you can take what is written in this document. Now, of course, she can't get married to somebody else if she's still married to the husband. So therefore, as long as the husband is alive, she's unable to collect the ksuba, because she only collects the ksuba upon getting married to somebody else, which is impossible as long as the husband is alive. So therefore, Rav is saying that the brother can make the argument that he is the yavam, so he's now standing in place of his brother, and just like the ksuba would not be able to be collected during his brother's lifetime, so the ksuba also wouldn't be able to be collected during his lifetime of the yavam, and therefore he should not have to pay for her burial, which is in place of the ksuba. So manchamas le de isle medrash ksuba. So now the Gemara says, but one second, Rav, or maybe it's even Abaye saying, but Rav, who is the opinion who says that we darshan the ksuba, that we make the yukim from the text of the ksuba to say, look, it says l'chetinosi la'acher only once you marry somebody else, and that's impossible because he's alive and she can't marry somebody else while the husband's alive. Beis Shammai, it's Beis Shammai who makes these diukim, these implications. V'shaminu lu Beis Shammai, and we also know that Beis Shammai's opinion is that a document that needs to be collected, it's as though it has already been collected. It is as though it has already been collected. The Tanan, as we learn in a Mishnah in, I guess, Sota, Mesu Baileyan, that if you have a woman who needs to drink the Sota waters, there was a whole situation with, she's suspected of maybe having a relationship, she has to drink the Sota water, but now the husband dies before there was a chance to give her the drink. So Achelo Shasu, so if the husband dies before if the husbands die before the wives who are suspected have a chance to drink, Beis Shammai notlis ksuba v'lo shosos. Beis Shammai says they can collect their ksuba and they don't drink the water, the sota water. The Beis Hillel says o shosos o lo notlos ksuba. Right? Either they drink, or if they don't want to drink, then they're not going to be able to collect the ksuba. Oshosos, what do you mean they drink? What do you mean? The pasuk says that the husband brings his wife to drink and he's dead. Rather, it's because on account of the fact that they are not going to be drinking since their husbands are dead, so therefore they do not receive their ksubas. Fine. Beis Shammai says not los ksuba v'lo shosos. So one second. So Beis Shammai had said that these wives who are suspected of having relationships, they receive their ksuba payments and they do not drink the waters. Va'amai, why should they be able to receive their ksuba payments? Sveiko, sofik zanoi, sofik lo zanoi. We don't know, right? Maybe they had a relationship with somebody else, in which case they wouldn't be able to collect the ksuba, or maybe they didn't, in which case they can collect the ksuba, but it's a suffix. We're in doubt. Because he's suffix, how could this doubt of maybe she had a relationship with somebody else, maybe she didn't, maybe she's entitled to a ksuba, maybe she's not, how could, this doubt, how could this suffix entitle her to collect the ksuba from the brothers who are definitely inheriting from the deceased husband? So kasavre from the state of the husband. So kasavre Beis Shammai shtarmod legavis k'gavidami. Well, it's because Beis Shammai's opinion is that a document that stands to be collected, it's as though it is already collected, right? And therefore, because it stood to be correctly already from earlier, so therefore, she can collect it now as well. So, therefore, when you have this, so therefore we're arguing that if you have this brother, and the brother dies, and then his wife, right, so you have Reuven dies, Sarah now needs to leave him with Shimon. Then Sarah dies, and the question is, does Shimon have to bury her? The answer is yes, because since this Ksubis stood to be collected, so therefore it's already considered as though it is collected, and therefore you need to, and therefore in place of collecting the Ksubis, he has to pay for her burial. But at the end of the day, how would you be able to collect a Ksubis when she, right, in her lifetime, if she can't marry somebody else as long as she's married to the husband? So Rav Ashi Yavam Nami Kachar Dami. Well, in the case of the Yavam, right, even though yes, he's alive, but he's considered like somebody else, right? So therefore it's considered like that once already the first husband dies, and now she has to do Yibum with the brother, he's considered like somebody else, like she's marrying somebody else, and therefore she's entitled to the Ksubis, and since she's entitled to the Ksubis, the Yavam would have to pay for her burial. Shalach le Rava la Abai, so Rava sends to Abai, Biyad Rav Shmaya bar Zera, uminitna Ksubis legabas mechaim. So Rava sends to Abai, can a Ksubis really be collected mechaim, right, when the guy's still alive, right? Meaning, Rava had said earlier that the brother should be able to make a claim that he's not burying the wife, and his rationale was that lo nitna Ksubis legabos mechaim, that the brother is not responsible to pay for the burial of Sarah, since he stands in place of his brother who died, and the Ksubis is unable to be collected during life, right? Mechaim. But then Abai then proved him wrong, right? And he says that would be the opinion, that would be essentially the opinion of Beis Shammai, that they do this whole drasha of the Ksubis. So basically, Abaye is arguing against Rav, who says lo in the Ksubis legabos mechaim. So therefore, Rav is arguing back to Abaye. So can a Ksubis then really be collected mechaim when the husband's still alive? So Shalach le Rav la Abaye bi'ad Rav Shmaya bar Zera uminitna Ksubis legabos mechaim. Can a Ksubis really be collected when the husband's alive? Ve'atani b'ulan le'braisa Reb Abba. Omer says, Reb Abba, Shalti asumchus, ataka asumchus, arutza shimkor b'nichsei ochiv. Ketzad hu oseh. Let's say you have a Shimon, right? Reuven was married to Sarah. Reuven dies. Now Shimon inherits the Ksubis. Now the thing is that, right, Shimon inherits Reuven. So now the thing is that Sarah is now still entitled to the Ksubis that she had from Reuven now transfers to Shimon, and because Reuven's property is meshuba to Sarah's Ksubis, Shimon is unable to sell any of Reuven's property because all of Reuven's property is meshuba to this Ksubis. So what does Shimon do if he wants to sell some of Reuven's property, but all of the property is meshuba to the Ksubis of Sarah, right? So harotza shimkor b'nichsei ochiv, that if Shimon wants to sell Reuven's property, what does he do since it's meshuba to the Ksubis, right? So meaning if Shimon did Yibum with Sarah, and now they're married, and her Ksubis is from Reuven, all of Reuven's property is meshuba to Sarah's Ksubis. So im koyenu, so if Shimon is a koyin, which means that he can't divorce her and get remarried, because then she's a grusha, so yais suda v'fayis. So he should make a big, beautiful dinner, and at the dinner, he convinces her to allow him to sell some of the property. In Yisraelu, and if he's Yisrael megarish beget v'yachzer, so he divorces her, and then he could sell whatever he wants. He pays, right? He sells her whatever. He could sell whatever he wants, and then they can get remarried. Now the question is, if a Ksubis would be able to be collected mechaim, if we can consider it at least that the Ksubis is able to be collected mechaim, so niyachid lo shir Ksubis v'shal lisbin. Well, if the Ksubis can be collected already from the lifetime, so why doesn't he just set aside why doesn't Shimon just set aside part of Reuven's property as payment for the Ksuba, and that would be considered like it's collected, and then he could sell the rest of the property. So that's what Rav is asking Abaye. Abaye, if you're saying that the Ksuba can be collected Mechaim when the husband's alive, so why does Shimon need to go through the headache of divorcing her and then selling and then getting remarried? So why can't he just set aside part, the equivalent of the Ksuba, and then sell the rest of it? The time to which the Gemara says, well, that's not really such a good question because Los V'Mimas Nisan. Can't you also, why do you have to ask from this Brisa? Why not just ask from our Mishnah? Right, our Mishnah had said that if Reuven dies and Shimon does even with Sarah, Shimon should not say, okay, this part of Reuven's estate is going to be for your Ksuba, I'm going to sell the rest. So shouldn't our Mishnah be a kasha on Abaye? If Abaye says that the Ksuba can be collected Michaim, so then I don't understand, why does the Mishnah say that Shimon cannot set aside part of Reuven's estate to be for the Ksuba? Why not? Didn't the Ksuba legavas Michaim? Rather, I'm sorry, wait, what? That all of Reuven's property is Meshuba to the Ksuba. So Hasam Eitza Tova Kamaj Malon. So the Gemara says, well, the reason why you couldn't bring a proof from our Mishnah, because our Mishnah was really just giving just good advice that you shouldn't do that. Because if something happens to this stuff that you set aside, then what are you going to do? The Ilote Ma'achi, and I'll prove it to you, that the Mishnah is just giving good advice by saying don't set aside part of Reuven's property and then sell the rest. Because Sefer the Katani, V'chein lo yomar adam li'ishto, that it says in the Sefer of the Mishnah that also a husband, we're not talking about a Yavam and a Yavama anymore, we're talking about a husband and wife. Lo yomar adam li'ishto, a husband should not say to his wife, Parek subasich v'nachas licha ala shulchan, that here I'm setting aside property for your Ksubis. All of his property is Meshuba to his wife's Ksuba. So what does this mean? Does this mean that if a husband wants to sell his property, he's not allowed to sell any of his property because it's all Meshuba to his wife's Ksuba? No, rather he's just giving advice that he shouldn't set aside part of the, just part of it, of his property and say this is going to be for your Ksuba. It's just good advice, but if he wants to sell other part of his property, he can. It works. So Achanami Eitza Tova Kamashmalon. So here also by the Yavam, right, Shimon who marries Sarah, also it's just giving good advice that he shouldn't set that aside. But Elad Reb Abba Kasha. But what do we do with Reb Abba's Kasha though? Which is that we're saying that if you have Reuven dies and then Shimon does Yibum with Sarah, but he wants to be able to sell some of Reuven's property, he has to divorce her and then sell it and then get remarried. Why not, right? If we say Nitna Ksuba Legavas Mechaim, why not just set aside part of the estate for the Ksuba and then sell the rest? No, because that's also not a question, right? Because we're saying technically yes, Nitna Ksuba Legavas Mechaim, but we also don't recommend setting aside part of the Ksuba, a part of the estate for the Ksuba and then selling the rest, because what is it kind of like? What kind of message does it send to Sarah? That he's already thinking about divorce, that he's already setting aside property, that just in case we get divorced, this is what I'm going to give you, right? It's not like a recipe for success, so therefore it's not recommended. But we'll still argue that technically speaking, yes, nitna ksuba legavas mechaim. How gaver denafale yivame bepumbedisa. So there was a certain fellow, right? Let's call him Shimon, that his brother Reuven died, and now there's Sarah's, a Shomeres Yavam. So Gavra Denafla Le Yavama Bepumbedisa. And the thing is, there's not just Shimon, there's Levi as well. So Reuven was married to Sarah. Reuven dies. Shimon is now going to do Yibum with Sarah. Now Levi was not happy that Shimon was doing Yibum with Sarah and consequently inheriting Reuven. because that's the way it works. Whoever does Yibum inherits Reuven. So therefore, Levi was determined that he was going to throw a get at Sarah, and by doing so, disqualify both him, Levi, and Shimon, both Shimon and Levi, from being able to do Yibum with her. To which Shimon responds to Levi, says, "What are you doing? How come you're doing this?" Mishum nichsei. What? Because you want also part of Reuven's estate? Ana b'nichsei pligan alach. I'll split it with you. Rav Yosef given the Amar Rabbanan lo Lisbon. Now Rav Yosef said, look, since the rabbis say that you're not allowed, right, that Shimon would be unable to sell Reuven's property since it's meshubah to Sarah's Ksubis, Shimon would be unable to sell Reuven's property because it's meshubah to Sarah's Ksubis. Even if Shimon sells it, right, if Shimon sells that property, it would not work, since the rabbis say that he is not allowed to. It's all meshubah to Reuven's, to Sarah's Ksubis, and therefore Shimon would be unable to split Reuven's estate with Levi. The Tanya we learn in the Brayso Mishemeis v'niach shomeres Yovam, that if Reuven dies and now Sarah needs to do Yibum with Shimon, v'niach nechasim b'mei amana, and Reuven left property worth 100 mana. That's a lot. Kilu a ksuba is mana or masayim, right? A mana, right? This is 100 times of a mana. So now, even though Sarah's ksuba is only a mana, lo yimkor, still Shimon cannot sell any of Reuven's property, even though it's 100 times the amount of her ksuba, because shekol nechasin achorei nechsuba, because all of Reuven's property is meshuba to Sarah's ksuba, and therefore Shimon cannot sell any of it, even though it's way more than her ksuba. Abai says to Rav Yosef, so Abai says to Rav, is that really the case, that if the rabbis say not to sell, so then even if he does end up selling it, it won't work? We learned in the Mishnah, Beishami says Beishami Timkor, we say Lo Timkor, right? We saw the other day that if you have a woman who is betrothed and she inherits property, so both Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel say that she shouldn't sell it at that point since she's betrothed, but if she does sell it, so it works. That both Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai agree that if she sells it, it works. So we see that even though the rabbis say don't sell it, the sale stands. By Papi, so they sent her before. So they sent the kasha to Chanina by Papi. Right? What do you do? Right? If this, the Yavam sells the property of his deceased brother, does it work? Can he do that? Shalcha kid Rav Yosef. So they sent to Rav Chanina by Papi, and he sent back that it's like Rav Yosef that if the rabbis say don't sell, you cannot sell. Amar Abai, Rav Chanina by Papi, kifi ta'allah. So Abai says, did Rav Chanina bar Papi give an explanation for why he sided with Rav Yosef? Shachul lekam Rav Manyomi braid Rav Nachumi, so they sent the kasha to Rav Manyomi braid Rav Nachumi. Shalcha kida Abai. So he actually sent in support of Abai, that even though they say not to sell, if they sell, it works. V'i Omar ba Rav Yosef time achvina shilchuli. But Rav Manyomi braid Rav Nachumi, added that, but if Rav Yosef has a different proof, send it to me. Nafak Rav Yosef dog be'ashkach. So Rav Yosef went and he actually did find another proof to say that since the rabbi said not to sell, the sale doesn't work. The Tanya is within the Brayso. I will show you. Noshe ba'achiv v'mes. If Shimon borrowed $1,000 from Reuven, so Shimon owes $1,000 to his brother Reuven, and then Reuven dies, and Shimon now needs to do Yibum with Sarah. Lo Yomar, Shimon should not say, Shimon should not say, this is great. My brother died. I owed him $1,000. I'm inheriting my brother. I don't need to pay back Reuven. He's dead. I'm inheriting him. So we're saying he cannot say that. He cannot say that, and therefore he would be unable to sell any of that. Right? You'd be unable to, spend that loan, and if he did, it wouldn't work. So we're saying that he can't do anything with that money. And if he does, it doesn't work. Ella, rather, what does he do? Motziin miyavim v'yikach bo'en karka. So what he does is, he basically gives the money that was owed to Ruvain to Sarah, and then they buy land. V'ochal peres, and he can eat the fruits. So we see that if the rabbis say don't sell, you're not allowed to sell. So Amalei Abaye says to Rav Yosef, maybe they're just giving him good advice. Maybe we're just saying, look, instead of buying pizza with it, purchase land, and that way that's a better investment. So Rav Yosef says, I don't understand. The Brisa is saying, it's saying that we forcefully extract this money against his will and give it to his wife. And you're saying that we're just looking out for we give it to Sarah. And you're just saying that we're just giving him good advice. We're more than just giving him good advice. We're forcing him to do that. So so they resent the query to Manyomi Breda of Nachumi. Amr Lehu, and he said to them, Hacham Rav Yosef bar Manyomi. This is what Rav Yosef bar Manyomi said, Amr of Nachman, in the name of Nachman, Zo in a Mishnah, that this actually is not a reliable brisa. This is not actually a reliable brisa. My time outcome. If you're going to say, well, because we're talking about money here, that Shimon owed $1,000 to Reuven, and metaltalin isn't mishubad to the Ksubis, and therefore it doesn't make sense to say that he would be unable to spend it. But why does that necessarily mean that the brisa is invalid? Maybe it's the opinion of Rav Meir, who says that metaltalin is mishubad to the Ksubis. Ve'ela mishum do amar lo atla bailas dvarim didiyat. Well, maybe you're going to say, well, it's invalid because Shimon can just say to Sarah, look, I'm not paying you the $1,000. I don't owe you $1,000. I owed my brother $1,000 and he's dead. Well, Dim Reb Nosani. But maybe this brisa is Reb Nosan. The Tanis, we learned in the brisa, as we've seen before. Reb Nosan Omer says, Reb Nosan minayin l'noshe b'chaver mono. How do we know that in this case, if Shimon owes $1,000 to Ruvain, and Ruvain needs to pay Sarah her Ksubis, so how do we know that we take the $1,000 from Shimon and give it directly to Sarah? That it says that you give the money to whoever is owed, not necessarily to whoever he specifically owes, which in this case would be Shimon, but wherever the money is going to land, which is by Sarah. So we could just say that the brisa is Reb Nosan. Rather, but we don't have a precedent for having double stringencies when it comes to Ksubis. Ella ikrib Meir, ikrib Nosan. Look, the brisa is either going to have to be Reb Meir or it's going to have to be Reb Nosan. You can't have one brisa that's both the stringent opinion of Reb Meir and the stringent opinion of Reb Nosan. Rava says, okay, so that makes sense. Hanu the Shemaina Leila Abaye. This is what I've heard from Abaye Damarzoy in a Mishnah, that Abaye said that this brisa is unreliable. I didn't understand what it meant by this brisa was unreliable, but now I understand, because there's two chumras there, and we don't rely upon two chumras when it comes to, double chumras when it comes to Ksubis. That was Av Pei Aleph of Masech Ksubis. At the beginning of the daf, we talked about who pays for the burial of a Shomeres Yavam who passes away. We said it is the estate of the late husband, since they inherit the Ksuba, and there is a, if in place of the Ksuba, the husband is responsible for her burial, and since they inherit the Ksuba, they are responsible for her burial. Rava then suggested, but maybe the brother can say that, yeah, but I'm not paying for the Ksuba, because anyways, you can't collect the Ksuba in the husband's lifetime, and I'm in place of the husband, and I'm alive, therefore she can't collect the Ksuba. Then we got into machlokas between Abaye and Rava about can a Ksuba be collected during the husband's lifetime or not. Rava says no. Abaye says yes. We then saw machlokas between Rav Yosef and Abaye about, since the rabbis say that Shimon is unable to sell Reuven's property since it's meshubad to Sarah's Ksuba, if he does sell it, then what? Rav Yosef says the sale is no good. Abaye says the sale is good. Friends, that was the Pei Aleph Masech Ksubis. Hope you enjoy. Peace out.